For decades, the world believed it knew every secret Princess Diana carried to her grave. But in the early months of 2024, a dusty box in an Essex auction house revealed a truth so explosive it has sent shockwaves through the very foundation of the British monarchy. This is not just another collection of thank you notes or charitable correspondence. This is the lost letter of the People's Princess. A final desperate message addressed to the one person she was never supposed to trust, Princess Anne. For 26 years, this cream-colored envelope sealed with a rare red wax crest, Diana reserved only for her most private thoughts, remained hidden from the prying eyes of the global media. Now that the seal has been broken, we are forced to look at the history of the House of Windsor through a terrifyingly different lens. Was this a warning? A plea for help? Or a chilling prophecy of the rebellion that would eventually tear her sons apart? Stay tuned, because what lies inside this letter changes everything we thought we knew about the rivalry between the two most powerful women in the royal family. To understand why this letter is so revolutionary, we have to travel back to the cold, rigid halls of Buckingham Palace in the early 1980s. At that time, Princess Anne was the undisputed veteran of royal life. She was the daughter of a queen, a woman forged in the fires of duty tradition and an ironclad stoicism that forbade any public display of emotion. She was the hardest-working royal, attending hundreds of events a year without ever asking for a headline. Then came Diana. In 1981, a 19-year-old girl with a shy smile and a revolutionary heart entered the scene, and the world went mad. While Anne was opening hospitals in silence, Diana was hugging children crying with the grieving and bringing a warmth to the monarchy that it hadn't seen in centuries. The distance between them was immediate and palpable. In every family photo from that era, the body language tells the story. Anne standing rigid and distant, Diana looking like a flower trying to survive in a blizzard of protocol. The rivalry wasn't just about personality, it was about the very definition of what a princess should be. Anne followed the old world rule of never complain, never explain. Even during her own marriage collapses and personal trials, she never missed a day of work. She viewed Diana's openness about her mental health and her struggles with bulimia not as courage but as a dangerous weakness that threatened the stability of the crown. The tension reached a breaking point during the christenings of Diana's sons. When Prince William was born in 1982, tradition dictated that Anne should be a godmother. It was a sign of family unity. But Diana, feeling the coldness of her sister-in-law, broke the rules and chose her own friends instead. When Prince Harry was born 2 years later, she snubbed Anne again. The reaction was swift and brutal. On the day of Harry's baptism, Princess Anne was nowhere to be found. Instead of attending the royal event, she famously went on a hunting trip at her country estate, sending a clear message to the world. If Diana could ignore tradition, Anne could ignore Diana. But as the years passed, and the fairy tale marriage of Charles and Diana disintegrated into a public war, something shifted. Behind the closed doors of Kensington Palace, Diana began to realize that the very thing she hated about Anne, her unshakable strength and her refusal to bend to the media, was exactly what she needed for her children. By early 1997, the Princess of Wales was at a turning point. She had lost her HRH title, she was being followed by dark forces she couldn't identify, and she was terrified for the future of William and Harry. She was a mother who felt the walls closing in. It was in this state of heightened anxiety that she sat at her desk and scratched out a letter that would remain a secret for more than a quarter of a century. She chose Anne, the woman who had judged her most harshly, as the recipient of her final hope. The discovery of this letter by auctioneer James Parker in 2024 was nothing short of miraculous. Having passed through the hands of 3 different owners, including a retired banker who bought it from a palace insider, the envelope remained unopened, its secrets perfectly preserved. When historian Dr. Sarah Matthews first examined the document, she noted that the ink looked as if it had been blotted just yesterday. Diana wrote with a calm that was uncharacteristic of her final chaotic months. She didn't write with anger toward the royal family. She wrote with a cold political clarity. She spoke of a monarchy that was failing to adapt to a changing world, warning that the media was becoming a monster that would eventually consume those who didn't know how to fight it. The most heart-wrenching part of the letter is Diana's direct address to Anne. She praised the Princess Royal for her loyalty and her strength, admitting that while they were worlds apart in temperament, they both shared a fierce love for the institution they served. Then came the request that has left royal biographers stunned. Diana asked Anne to be the emotional anchor for William and Harry if she were to ever disappear from the scene. She knew that her sons would be trapped in a world of rigid rules and relentless scrutiny. She feared that William would be crushed by the weight of the crown, and that Harry would be lost in the shadows of being the spare. She asked Anne to use her unique position to give them the freedom to be themselves, to allow them to make their own choices, even if those choices defied tradition. In light of everything that has happened since that tragic night in Paris, in August 1997, Diana's words feel less like a letter and more like a prophecy. She predicted the exact struggle that is currently tearing the royal family apart. She saw that William would try to balance the old ways with a modern heart, and she foresaw that Harry would one day feel so suffocated by the firm that he would choose freedom over his birthright. The fact that she reached out to Anne, a woman she had spent a decade avoiding, shows how truly isolated Diana felt. She believed that Anne was the only one with enough backbone to stand up to the palace machinery on behalf of the boys. The palace has maintained a deafening silence regarding the discovery of this letter, which many experts believe confirms its authenticity. If they acknowledge the letter, they must acknowledge Diana's fears. They must acknowledge that she felt watched, that she felt her phone calls were being monitored, and that she felt powerful people wanted her silenced. In the months before her death, Diana's secretary noticed a change in her. She was writing more often, her handwriting looking rushed, as if she were running out of time. She spoke to her butler, Paul Burrell, about dark forces, and she sent messages to her close friend, Lucia Flecha de Lima, mentioning that she felt unsafe. But the letter to Anne was different. It wasn't about her own safety. It was about the legacy she was leaving behind in the form of two young princes. Royal historian Dr. James Bennett suggests that this letter proves Diana was far more politically savvy than history gives her credit for. She understood the internal politics of the palace better than the courtiers did. She saw the rise of a new kind of celebrity and a new kind of media power that would make the old ways of the monarchy obsolete. She knew that if her sons didn't have someone like Anne, someone who understood duty but also knew how to survive, they would be destroyed. The letter reveals a side of Diana that is thoughtful, strategic, and deeply selfless. She was willing to swallow her pride and reach out to her rival if it meant her children would have a better chance at happiness. The timing of the letter is also crucial. It was written just as Diana was beginning her most dangerous work, the fight against landmines. In 1997, she shocked the world by walking through an active minefield in Angola. It was a move that made some very powerful people in the arms industry and the government extremely unhappy. She was stepping outside the boundaries of a traditional princess and becoming a global political force. Her letter to Anne hints at this danger, suggesting that she knew her actions were making her a target. She didn't sound afraid, but she sounded like a person making a will. She was putting her affairs in order, and the most important item on her list was the protection of William and Harry. As we look at the royal family, in 2024, the fulfillment of Diana's prophecy is undeniable. Prince William has become a leader who tries to bridge the gap between his mother's warmth and the Queen's duty. He raises his children with a level of normalcy that Diana fought for, allowing them to go to regular schools and show affection in public. He has, in many ways, become the modern king his mother envisioned. On the other hand, Prince Harry's exit from royal life and his move to California is the ultimate realization of Diana's fear that the pressure would become too much for her youngest son. Harry's rebellion, his choice of freedom over tradition, is exactly what Diana warned Anne might happen if the family didn't learn to adapt. Perhaps the most fascinating element of this saga is the role of Princess Anne herself. While she has never spoken publicly about the letter, those who work inside the palace have noticed a subtle change in her over the last 25 years. Anne has quietly defended many of William's modernizing choices in private family meetings. She has remained a steadfast support for the monarchy, while also pushing for a slimmed-down institution that focuses on real work rather than royal theatre. It is as if she took Diana's final request to heart, acting as the silent guardian of the boys' ability to navigate a world their mother no longer could. Anne's refusal to criticize Harry publicly, even when other family members were vocal in their disapproval, reflects the understanding that Diana begged for in her letter. The auction of these letters in Essex has reignited a global conversation about Diana's final days. For many, it is a reminder of the what-ifs. What if Diana and Anne had become allies earlier? What if the royal family had listened to her warnings about the media and the need for change? The letter remains a haunting piece of history, a cream-colored envelope that holds the echoes of a woman who saw the future and tried to save her family from it. It proves that even in a world of palaces and protocols, the most powerful force is still a mother's intuition. Diana Spencer died as the most famous woman in the world, but her last act was that of a protective mother trusting her rival with the lives of her sons. As the letter now sits in the British Library under the careful study of historians and handwriting experts, it serves as a bridge between the past and the present. It tells us that the royal drama we see today, the rifts, the scandals, and the struggle for relevance, was all set in motion decades ago. Diana's lost message to Anne is a reminder that the crown is a heavy burden, and sometimes the only way to carry it is to reach out to the person you least expect. It changes the narrative of the rebellious royal and the stoic princess, revealing two women who were both in their own way trying to save an empire from its own tradition. The world will likely never stop being fascinated by Diana, but this discovery gives us a new way to remember her. Not just as a victim of the press or a fashion icon, but as a visionary who understood the price of the crown and tried to pay it forward for her children. The secret letter to Princess Anne is the final chapter in a story of duty, emotion, and the enduring power of a secret kept for 26 years. It reminds us that in the world of the royals, the most important stories are often the ones that are never told until now. If Diana could see the lives of William and Harry today, she would know that her warning was heard, even if it wasn't enough to prevent the heartbreak that followed. The legacy of the people's princess lives on, not just in the hearts of the public, but in a hidden letter that proves she was always one step ahead of the throne. What do you think about this shocking revelation? Was Diana right to trust Anne with the future of her sons, or was this a desperate move from a woman who had nowhere else to turn? The debate over the lost letter is just beginning, and as more details emerge from the auction files, the secrets of the palace continue to unravel. One thing is certain: the relationship between Diana and Anne was far more complex than the headlines ever suggested. Behind the rivalry was a mutual respect and a shared fear for the future of the monarchy. As we watch William and Harry navigate their very different paths, we are seeing the direct result of the prophecy Diana wrote down on that cool morning in 1997. The crown must change or it will break. Diana knew it then, and the world knows it now. Keep watching, because in the history of the House of Windsor, Every secret eventually comes to light, and the truth is always more dramatic than the fiction. This is the story of a mother's love, a princess's hope, and the letter that changed everything. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe as we continue to uncover the hidden dramas of the world's most famous family. The next video on your screen will take you even deeper into the secrets they tried to bury. You won't want to miss it.